Welcome, Carl.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, things are good. Super good.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, you are these Kitces and Carl podcasts seem to have now evolved in this interesting direction of let's talk about what Carl's tweeted lately. Because in a positive way, like you have this gift of just kind of setting out these interesting ideas, these interesting nuggets, these interesting tidbits. Like, hey, I was just thinking about this thing. I'm just going to kind of put this down for everyone and walk away for a few minutes. Then, like, explosions and fireworks happen, and everybody's kind of taking in this concept that you've just laid down and dropped a bomb with. And so the one that struck me that you had sent around recently, you asked this what I would have thought was rather an innocuous question, where you'd said, which one of these is true for you? Having confidence leads to action, or taking action leads to confidence. Right? So does the confidence drive the action, or does the action drive the confidence? And so you put this out there in a like Twitter style poll, and hundreds of people responded. And it was almost a perfect 50-50 split. 49% confidence leads to action, 51% action leads to confidence. And, I'll admit my initial reaction to this, because this is, I think, how our brains always work. Well, I would have answered this one way, and I can't believe almost 50% of people answered the other way. What's going on with everyone else out there? Because I am very much a confidence leads to action. Like, I have to analyze and study the bejesus out of something before I'm possibly willing to take a step. I have to get to that level of confidence. And I'm looking at this poll there. It's like, but 51% of people are in the, I guess I'd colloquially say, like, the fake it till you make it. Like, just take the action, drive out there, do what you're going to do, find the confidence as you do it, and it works. And it's so alien to me that I'm kind of blown away by that, but I understand other people operate this way. And so I thought just it would be an interesting thing to delve into for one of the discussions here. Because I think the fundamental thing I find for so many advisors is that by whatever means we get there, if you can't get to the confidence in the end, the business doesn't work. You're not confident with clients. They don't hire you. They don't take your advice. Like, the lack of confidence shows through. So some people have to get their confidence first. Some people for action lead to confidence. But like, confidence is clearly this necessary ingredient. And we seem to get to it in very different ways.
Yeah.
So where were you going with this when you lobbed this out there? I know there's usually something like whirring around in your head when you ask these questions. So where were you going with this question of, does confidence lead to action, or does action lead to confidence?
Yeah, I'm just really fascinated with I don't know who first named it. I think Bob Sutton at Stanford introduced me to it first. I believe that he even wrote the book. I may have this wrong, but there's this, I'm pretty sure I have it right. The knowing doing gap, right? The gap between knowing something and doing it. And I think I've just been fascinated by that for 20 years.
So this whole, I guess, well, I get it. The knowing doing gap is essentially like a version of the behavior gap itself, right? Like, I know I'm supposed to do this with my investments and not screw it up. And then when I actually get to the doing part, I don't do what in theory I know I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And certainly, like, as I've gotten less and less interested in just purely investing and more interested in like creating stuff and putting it into the world and what, like all of that stuff. I think that the gap in our own behavior, but to stay pretty focused, this knowing doing gap, I'm like, well, why do some people do things and other people don't, given the exact same set of opportunity set and information. And I know it's never exactly the same, but it's close enough.
Well, I think it's what we live with our clients, right? Like, I
sure.
gave them the financial plan and they left my office and they didn't do it.
Yeah. No, and that's where that interest in that thing came in the first place. I'm like, geez, but I've noticed even more specifically with some of the workshops we've taught with advisors where like they come and they pay a lot of money and they say, I want to learn to do this thing that you're teaching. And I designed these workshops so that there was literally, like we used to say, as a design requirement, there would be no place left to hide, right? Like it would be so tactical, word for word scripts, and like so tactical that there would be no place left to hide. And over the years of doing those, I just realized like, but the group, like for instance, writing a book, we're going to give you the exact tactics on how to write a book. There's no mystery. There's no secret sauce. There's nothing. And I would say 10% of the people that have attended a workshop like that, we call it scaling influence, a workshop like that, like 10% of the people apply it. And so I kept wondering, like, what am I doing wrong? And how do we change it? And it pointed me down this path where I'm still trying to understand, like, yeah, fear shows up, and the antidote to fear has to be at some level the ability to act confidently. I just think confidence has something to do. It may be one of the most valuable assets we have as creative business owners. And I know advisors aren't used to that idea, but you are a creative entrepreneur if you run your own financial planning firm. Right. And mainly because the medium, like, yeah, you're not sculpting, right? But the medium is people's lives. It doesn't get more dynamic than that. So yeah, I was like, okay, is it mindset? Do I get my head straight first and then I have the confidence to act? Or do I dive in and act a bit, and with each little micro action I take, I gain a little confidence, and it's sort of a flywheel? That's where I was headed with it, right? And I was totally shocked, because at first I think it was more skewed towards action, then comes confidence. It was like, but it was never more than 56%. And at one time, like 20 minutes before the poll closed, it was exactly 50-50. And I was like, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So where are you on this spectrum?
I thought that I was act, right? Just jump into the deep end. I don't know what I'm doing, but the way I'm going to figure out how to do it. But I think that's pointing at something slightly different, which is how you learn. Mm-hmm. I need like 20 minutes of classroom instruction on how to paddle a kayak. And beyond that, I'm like, I can't, get me in the boat, get me in the kayak, right? Like I can't listen. I don't understand. So I thought that and there's probably some relationship between those, how you learn, but now I'm sort of curious though, like where does the confidence to just jump in the boat come from? If I'm not feeling confident that day, I won't go to class. Right. And so I'm pretty sure especially after reading a bunch of the replies and the conversations that went on, pretty sure this is the chicken and egg debate, right? Like you just can't, it's circular. It's a flywheel for sure. And the trick would be figuring out how to start the flywheel in motion.
Well, but I have to admit, I think that is an action leads to confidence framework and view in the first place, that, action's what starts the flywheel for you. Because I come at it from the opposite perspective. Like I'm very much a confidence leads to action. I have to analyze and study the bejesus out of something before I do it. That doesn't necessarily stop me from taking action, right? I've been involved in a lot of businesses. I've eventually created a lot of stuff, but I have to study the hell out of it before I go anywhere. I mean, for me, like it's part of why I ended out with alphabet soup of designations. Like for me, truly, like for me, I cannot take action. I could not take action in advising clients until I had enough confidence that I knew my stuff, and I knew I knew my stuff, and I knew my stuff cold before I could even be able to sit across from a client and not just be hopeless. Like the confidence, like complete confidence, had to come first.
Yeah, you're using a word there that's really causing me trouble. Complete. Right? Complete. Because when is that complete?
Well,
like, where
it was somewhere after like 10 years and 24 letters. I eventually got there.
Yeah. But but that again would be some arbitrary line called complete, which is, why wasn't it 7 years, or why wasn't it 12 years, or why was it, like, so it's an interesting, so let's think of an example outside of advice. Like, give me an example from your life. Like, I don't think a ton of people know about are you still doing some improv stuff?
Yes. Yep. Involved with an organization called Washington Improv Theater now for almost 20 years, actually.
Can you think back to like that first moment where you were doing your own improv in front of somebody else?
See, I'm just gonna damage your point here further. 20 years as a volunteer, not one on stage. Not confident on stage in improv. I can find for giving a speech, right? I'm essentially a professional speaker for a big part of what I do, because I study the heck out of what I'm going to speak about before I get on the stage. I know my stuff before I get up there. 20 years being involved in improv, never once been on the stage an improviser, don't even have interest in doing so.
You don't have interest in doing so. Like, it's not like I would really like to, but I can't. You actually don't have any interest.
Yeah. Just, it's not a situation that's even appealing to go try. Like I mean, to me, it's the antithesis of the confidence first framework.
Why are you hanging out there for 20 years?
They're really cool people. Improvisers are very, very fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
Really cool people, amazing organization, and areas where I think I can help, in part because it helps to have a grounded person when you have a bunch of improvisers running a arts organization. It's very helpful to have a finance nerd that helps keep certain things grounded in the process. But
nobody around here would relate to anything you're saying right now. None of my friends would be saying anything.
Yeah. But again, like, and I understand people sort of exist on a spectrum. I am pretty far out there in the confidence leads to action. Although I know I'm not alone. I've met plenty of other advisors over the years that I think, in essence, have a version of the imposter syndrome that you've talked about in the past. That, I don't know why clients are paying me all this money. I don't feel deep down like I actually really know that much stuff. And if we're not confident in ourselves because of that, then eventually we may self-sabotage. And so the way they get over that was the way that I got over that. I have to go study things first. I have to go learn. I have to prove to myself that I know these things so that I'm confident enough then to take action in trying to help others. But we're not all wired that way, right? So I'm kind of fascinated by the folks on the other side that, maybe this is an unfair label, like for confidence first people like me, the other side is essentially the fake it till you make it approach, right? Like, hell, I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm just going to start doing that and I'll figure it out as I go. Maybe that's not a fair characterization. So you can reframe that if you want, but that from my end is kind of what the other side looks like. And again, I'm just fascinated that your poll basically came up 50-50 on these. People are very evenly split about how they get there.
Yeah, I think definitely different framing around that would be sort of like hunting for good enough, like understanding like I mean I if I had waited until I felt confident to write a book, I would have never written the book, or I still wouldn't have written the book. So I don't know where the line is there. There's certainly like I think let's not get distracted by this, but pointing, sort of watching like WeWork, and there's certainly and the same thing with what was it called, the blood company?
I'm blanking on the name now.
Theranos, but that's the dude in the Avengers movies.
Yeah.
But my point is, there's certainly like there's some real danger to anything close to fake it till you make it. Right? There's some real danger there that, like, especially when you're dealing with people's lives, we've got to know what we're doing. So, I mean, I guess that would be the question I have for you is, if you're a new advisor, actually, it doesn't even matter if you're new. Like, I can't believe how many emails I get from 20-year veterans who are crying in their email saying, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's this whole, you want to know, like crazy, Australia is crazy. Like 40% of the advisors will be dislocated in the next 2 years, probably. I was talking yesterday to the CEO of a huge advisory company who said 6 advisors in the past 2 weeks have come to him with serious concerns about their mental health, like suicidal.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's happening. So who cares whether you're brand new or new? You're feeling a lack of confidence. You need to take an action. What do you do? What do you do?
So I mean, I'll answer this coming from we'll call it the confidence first framework. I mean, what do I do? Like, I mean, I'm sort of joking, but it's true. Like, I study the heck out of it. I evaluate something until I get to the point where, in essence, I can convince myself that I know what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm a tough critic of myself. So that bar is pretty high before I feel like I've evaluated and analyzed and looked at it from enough angles that I can say, I think I really actually know what the hell I'm talking about here. Okay, I'm ready to put this thing forth. I'm ready to make this recommendation. I'm ready to start working with clients. And to be fair, I accumulated the alphabet soup for a long time. It wasn't literally 10 years before I was, not afraid to get in front of a client. But to be fair, like, it was probably 4 or 5 years of self-education, getting designations, like learning, trying to really get comfortable that I knew my stuff behind the scenes before I wasn't freaking out, at least in my head, sitting across from clients.
Yeah. Well, I can feel something we talked about a number of issues ago, and that's this idea. I believe it's a mistaken idea, but we don't need to get into it, around that our job is to provide solutions. So if I'm an advisor and I'm not feeling confident, I'm new in the industry, or I'm changing the way I do the business, I think if I let go of the idea that I am in that meeting, I am the solution, I've got to be ready to have answers. I think my experience has been clients love and are totally okay with somebody saying, I don't know.
And I think that's just because you're an action first person that's comfortable in that realm.
But I will get you an answer. And so if I understand my job in the first client meeting is to thoroughly diagnose, but not prescribe yet, then I can go away and study like crazy the advice I'm going to give when they come back. But in that first meeting, I can be okay with somebody saying, well, what would you do here and here and here? And me saying, it's okay. Like, first of all, I don't know that I have enough information to give you what you're asking for is a prescription. I totally get that you need, like, I want one too, right? But first of all, I don't know that I have enough information. And second, I don't really know the answer yet, but don't worry, we'll get there, right? Like that's what I'm talking about is, do I have the confidence to have, if I'm an individual, if I'm an advisor, like listening to this now, do I have the confidence to ask good questions? Do I have the confidence to go research the answer? And do I have the confidence to present the answer that I find? And
yeah, but I'm more curious about how you get the confidence to show up in the meeting in the first place. I mean, I'm serious, because I wouldn't. I didn't, literally for years.
Yeah,
I
didn't know there was an option to not do that for years. Like when I signed up for the job I got thrown in front of clients, right? And
well, I did too. It was a colossal failure. So then I went and found a different job.
Yeah. So
where I could work behind the scenes for a couple of years before I went back in front of clients again.
That's really fascinating, actually, that you purposely made that decision. Like, hey, I'm going to go put myself behind the scenes. So where does the confidence?
Because I was just too stubborn. I didn't want to leave, and prospecting clearly wasn't happening for me. So I had to find a plan B at that point.
Yeah, this points back to a super interesting concept that is of permission, of like, who gave you permission to be in that meeting? Who gave you permission to do that thing? And I realized that, like, you can't show up and perform a brain surgery and go, I gave myself permission. Like, there's some technical skills involved in the work that we do that take study, effort, time. You got to be on top of it, or they take a partner who has those technical skills, right? Like we're seeing more and more of that, where somebody's sort of almost, financial therapy, like really good at asking questions, and there's somebody else with some technical skills. But so I'm not pretending that you can show up and go, hey, I gave myself permission to do brain surgery. But you can show up and go, hey, you know what? I can have this meeting with this client and I can ask really good questions, and I can look them in the eyes and go, you know what? I don't know. I actually have never been asked that question, but I can find an answer for you. Right? And that confidence, I don't know. It's when you ask what was behind this tweet, that's the whole thing, is I'm super curious about who gave you permission to do the thing you're doing. And if you gave it to yourself, because most of the work we do, most of the work humans do, there's no certifying permission-giving body. I mean, I realize there's some exceptions, like you're an MD who performs surgery.
Yeah, a few of these professions have licenses, but that aside.
Even those, even people who have earned that license still struggle with imposter syndrome and feelings of permission. So permission seems to be separate. Like, no reassurance is enough.
Well, so for me, again, right, like, who gives me permission? The answer was me. And I'm not giving me permission until I'm willing to certify me to actually be in front of other human beings, which was go learn your stuff. So you know what you're doing. You're not going to hurt someone. Because, that was my fear. Like, I want to hurt a client, if only out of ignorance, but I want to hurt a client. So I need to learn my stuff first. Like, the permission giver was me.
Yep.
Would you answer that differently for you? I mean, if you're an action to confidence person, where does the permission come from?
The only person that's ever given me permission is me. Yeah, it's like that's the only. I mean, I sometimes
just have a different self-permission threshold.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we're talking about slightly different things too. Like I felt comfortable diving straight in with clients, trying to understand their problems, not offering solutions, but trying to understand their problems. tell me what brought you in today. What's going on here? Well, no, I mean, early on, the days at the brokerage firm that has a bull as its symbol is owned by a bank, it was just purely like, here, take this. This is how we do this. You take a questionnaire. Great. Here's 17 questions. Okay, cool. We're going to build. Explain the portfolio, plug them into the portfolio. And then as you go along, you realize like, hey, that's not solving the problem. What is the problem? And I just learned by doing, and does that lead to making some mistakes? Absolutely. Absolutely. We make mistakes. Is there sometimes collateral damage from those mistakes? Unfortunately, yes. Right. And I think anybody who does work of any type, it's a reason why they call medical whatever practices. Yeah. So there's a reason why so many of us have called our financial planning practice, right? Like, yeah. We're learning. So, but I'm fascinated by people like you that are like, because I would just be like, dude, come on, right? You can do it. Get it. And I have a son that's similar in some areas. He really likes to understand it and go through the motions and figure all that out. And I have an older daughter that way. And sometimes I had to change and go, wait, that's not a character flaw. It's just a different way of looking at the world.
So I think as we wrap up, I mean, to me, if there's one thing that I take away from this, it's just truly recognizing, like, you can get there by either path. We seem to be pretty hardwired for one or the other. It's basically a coin flip about which one you are. I think, to me, at a minimum, what that means for anybody who's kind of listening and thinking through this is just to reflect to yourself, like, which one are you? Are you I have to find the confidence first before I go to action? And then I think the natural question, as you framed it, is, when is enough enough? Because I certainly know some advisors out there that, confidence leads to action, but they never get to confidence. And that becomes the blocking point. They just literally never get there and don't launch their firms or don't launch their careers. And if you're in the action leads to confidence side, if you come at it from the other end, well, no, Carl, like, what would you frame to someone in that worldview? Like, what's the blocking point? What's the thing you have to be self-aware of if you realize this is how you operate to make sure that you get to where you need to go?
Yeah, no, I think I would clarify for a minute just that I'm not nearly as sure that there are two ways. I just find this interesting. I don't know that I can make any conclusions. I certainly don't know that I can make any conclusions that you're hardwired for one or the other, that everyone is hardwired for one or the other. All I know is that it's really interesting. And I think it's much more of a circular sort of function, chicken, egg, chicken sort of discussion. But because so what I think is, look, if you're prone to starting things quickly without thinking, right? You're relatively impulsive. These are all words that I have been labeled absolutely my whole life. That it's important to just sort of check, like, distinguish between the impact of the decisions you're making. Right. So how do you get started if you're a jump in first? Like you find, the way I like to think of it is you find the smallest next step. Okay. And I would do the same thing if you're a confidence first, like I can't act. And the same thing would be like, can you find the smallest next step? Take that action, reset, because new information will become available to you. And repeat that over and over and over and over. Right? Solve what they refer to it as in complexity theory is solve for the next local optimum. Right? So make a guess, solve for the next local optimum, take a step, gather new information, reset, do it over and over and over. That's what I learned from this experience.
Okay. Well, I hope that's helpful food for thought for people. I'm gonna guess. I don't know. I judging just I don't know by your poll results and how different we are. I'm still in the camp that people are in are kind of wired for one or the other, which means half the people listening to this episode think you're crazy, and the other half think I'm crazy.
Well, that's generally true. That's generally true anyway.
All right, but fair enough.
Yeah.
But hopefully it gives people some something good to think about.
Amen. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Carl.